Okay. Well, good morning to everybody. I am Debbie Cash. I'm Vice Chair of the CAR Professional Development Master Group, and I am basically taking Sasha Farmer's place this morning because she's away on a conference. So I'll just be the moderator, and hopefully I'm sure we're going to learn a lot today for the November Latte and Learn. So this session's focused on why you need a structural engineer. And our guest speaker is Alex Rayfield. Alex is a professional civil engineer in the state of Virginia, specializing in vertical and horizontal structures, as well as a state of Virginia licensed home inspector. He graduated in 2013 from the University of Alabama with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering and a minor in structural engineering. After college, he started his profession in Houston, Texas, where he primarily worked as a waterway engineer with minor non-life supporting structures. He moved on to Roanoke, Virginia, and worked as a structural engineer, completing projects for the DOE, USAID, City of Roanoke, and a few different healthcare organizations. He then worked in Washington, D.C. as a structural superintendent for a construction company to gain knowledge on how a design is put into action and becomes a product of the build environment. Today, he's hoping to help homeowners understand where they live, why the structural in which they live, in which they call home is built the way it is, and why such stringent rules and codes are in place and enforced. He hopes to bring peace of mind to each homeowner he works with so they can sleep more sound.
Yeah, should be.
Sleep more sound in a structure that they trust will keep them and their loved ones safe in the event one of these or many other natural disasters does take place. So currently he lives in Madison, Virginia, and the owner of Choice Home Inspections, which services residential and commercial inspections and elevated structural solutions, a structural engineering consulting firm that serves the Central Virginia area for custom home design, construction, administration, permitting, home repairs, additions, and/or renovations. So with all of that said, Alex, I now hand the session over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Debbie. Everybody that's associated with CAR, really appreciate the opportunity to present this morning. Everybody that's out there, good morning. Hope everybody's warm. Got some nice coffee in front of you. So yeah, I'm going to just speak a few minutes on, some of the common reasons why you might need a structural engineer. The majority of us on this call today are I would assume, are primarily residential realtors. We might have a few commercial folks sprinkled in. But at the end of the day, when it comes to the majority of the structures that we view here in the Central Virginia area, there's a lot of common threads between the different types of structures that we have as we span from the 1600s all the way up to present day. So having someone that knows the different types of construction, types of materials used, framing methods, and just how the whole house comes together as a whole can really benefit you as a realtor when you're taking clients out through walkthroughs, seeing properties for the first time, and really gauging interest on a specific property. So got about a 30-minute presentation today. I'm going to try and run through this as quickly as possible so we can answer a lot of questions on the back end, hopefully. So if you have a question, jot it down, note the slide number or what it's about, and at the end we can always go back and answer any questions you may have. So yeah, as Debbie said in that great introduction, my name is Alex Rayfield, professional engineer specializing in vertical and horizontal structures here in Virginia, licensed to do both engineering and home inspections. Also in my company, I have another home inspector that I brought on at the beginning of 2023. His name is Hunter Rayfield. Yes, that's my brother. He moved up from Alabama at the beginning of the year and has been working with me through the majority of the year. And possibly a lot of the folks on this call might have met and worked with him in the past as well. So just a brief background or agenda for today is the background on myself and the company, why we should use a structural engineer, when to use a structural engineer, why Virginia's Choice Home Inspections you should choose to work with us, where do we work, and then just answering some questions. So, just to briefly go through this again, yes, born and raised Montgomery, Alabama, graduated Alabama in 2012. I since then have designed a little over $3 billion worth of structures in the United States, in the Middle East, down in Haiti, a number of other USAID countries that we help out in. And then on the actual construction side, after transitioning from the design side to the construction side inside the same international company that I worked for, I then helped build a few different structures in the DC area that totaled somewhere around $1 billion in construction. So a little bit on the design background. So this is over in Waynesboro. This is probably the most visible and local project that I did. So when Augusta Health did their ER addition and renovation a few years back, it was my task to design the steel and glass canopy out in front of the emergency entrance, along with the 2 glass silos that make up the rotundas and the entryways into the hospital. So those 2 were direct designs of myself and the presiding professional engineer over me at that time. Let's see, and then on the construction side, so up in DC, while I was working as a structural superintendent for a large general contractor in the DC area, one of my first project up there was Union Place by Toll Brothers. So a 17-level structure, over 1 million square feet of conditioned space. My job was to build the structure. So it took about almost 2 years to build the structure itself. I forget, I want to say it was somewhere around 380,000 cubic yards of concrete is what we poured, post-tension slabs. So it was a very fun build, and then was able to help with a lot of the amenity spaces and bringing in extremely nice finishes. You can see the infinity pool on the rooftop that overlooks the Capitol. Like, it was very, very cool project. Very cool spot to have a bird's eye view of July 4th for 2 years as well in the DC area. So just to get right into it, why do you want to hire a structural engineer? So sometimes, depending on the situations that we find in some of these homes, and depending on your clients and their level of comfortability, sometimes it's more appropriate to bring in an engineer into some of these homes to make people feel more comfortable, to have a more broad depth of knowledge that can be brought into a home inspection, but also just as a walk-through structural inspection or whatever it may be that is, I don't want to say bugging your client, but having them a little, sitting a little uneasy. So bringing in an engineer, you're going to bring in a ton of knowledge from not only traditional schooling that we were required to have a minimum of 4 years, typically 6 to 8, and then the on-the-job learning. That's a large part of it. And then when it comes to being on site, there's thorough site testing that we do when it comes to a structural assessment. When it comes to residential structures, also depends on the type of build that we have, being a manufactured home, modular, stick build, truss system, concrete, wood, masonry. So there's a lot of different materials and building styles that come into play that a licensed engineer is going to know very deeply. Engineering reports, these are somewhat considered to have a lot of weight to them depending on the authority having jurisdiction, the AHJ, or your city of Charlottesville, your Albemarle County, your Greene County, etc. So having an engineer's letter in your back pocket, depending on the situation, can really help ease transactions and make people feel a lot more comfortable moving forward with a purchase or a sale. And then, like I said, proper assurance and safe feeling. Folks like hearing things from engineers. They tend to heed what an engineer says more so than maybe a specific type of contractor or anything like that. So when do we want to hire an engineer, structural engineer? So today, some of the meat of this presentation, some folks might have seen in the past as I've been around to different offices, but I really want to talk about some of the key identifiers that you as realtors that I want to teach you on today to identify as you go through homes with your clients, either through an initial walkthrough, secondary walkthroughs, or even later in the transaction, as things tend to pop up the more time that we spend in a specific home. So some of these being uneven floors, cracking in the finishes, windows and doors that don't operate. If we notice previous structural repairs have been made, maybe we want to bring in a structural engineer to verify that these repairs have actually been done, in according to local codes, current construction methods that are accepted. Other things are natural disasters, historical properties, distressed properties, and all these things that y'all can read here. And then a big one is once we get before that 1945, that end of the Second World War timeframe, we saw a massive shift in how homes were built and the requirements from local governments, local codes that came into place post World War II that really changed a lot of how building was done. So knowing the age of your home and the type of property that we're dealing with can really help you hone in to maybe who we need to bring in at a later time. So the first one I just want to show briefly is, which we've all seen this before, so a little marble trick with some sagging or overspanning floor joists. This is an old farmhouse. I'm going to say this was like 1860, somewhere around there. That obviously the centers of the floors have deflected quite a lot and is allowing for this marble to roll freely across the second floor. This might not necessarily mean, hey, there's something drastic and correct here, but it could key us into different types of framing methods, whether it be if folks have been exposed to what's called balloon framing versus platform framing. So that goes back to that 1945 and before, and actually even a little bit before then. Balloon framing is an old style of framing that we don't use anymore. It is not as resistant to lateral loading or wind or seismic loading that can be seen in structures. And because of that, over 90% of balloon frame structures are no longer standing or have been renovated to become platform framed structures during a massive renovation, if that structure was well enough to take it on. Some of the more common things, broken floor joists. So this goes back to those sagging and overspanned or tired floor joists. Like the picture on the left, the video, there was a ton of stored material on this second story, and that can totally and absolutely hinder the effectiveness of the floor joists over time. And so what we can have is what we see in the right picture is these are overspanned, overloaded joists that had a ton of material stored on them for a long time, and then the house just wasn't kept up with. And the entire first floor of this specific home, I want to say there was like 36 floor joists and 32 were completely cracked. And none of this was even noted during the home inspection, unfortunately. So I came in after the fact, helped this homeowner come up with a prescribed fix, worked hand in hand with the contractor to make sure we were doing exactly what we needed to do, nothing more, nothing less, and that we got the job done at the right price point for these folks. So the next thing, non-permitted residential renovations. So this can be a tricky one, as there's a lot of contractors out there that flip homes. There's a lot of contractors that do this very, very well. There's always the outliers that try and get one over on folks. The pictures that we're seeing on the screen right now was a townhouse. The basement, which is the picture on the right, had a typical 3-foot opening. The homeowner decided to open that, I want to say it was a 14-foot opening now, but failed to put in a structural header over top of the opening, and then just allowed the floor joist to rest on top of a single plate above the opening. And what happened is, in about 3 months' time, the level and the tape measure that you see in the 2 pictures on the left are actually from the 2nd floor. The 2nd floor and the 1st floor had started to give and had started to sink down almost a little bit over ½ an inch in less than 3 months' time. I was hired as an engineer, and I went back through county records and saw that no permits had ever been pulled for this renovation. It was a contractor that flips homes that had purchased the home a few months before, and 6 months later, the house looked completely different and was back on the market. And then was able, my client was under contract, had a home inspection, found some things, then I was brought in and was able to get this person out of the contract due to this non-permitted work, and that the homeowner could not verify that the repairs were done in the correct manner and in the appropriate amount of time. So the house was released, or the contract was released rather, and we went on to the next one. But that's a very serious one, especially in some of the older neighborhoods that are seeing a lot of turnover right now. A lot of your $250,000, $300,000 homes that are being renovated and turned into your $500,000, $600,000 homes. So if you run into these types of situations, it might be best to bring in someone like myself and my company that has both the knowledge and the expertise to, you know, the hairs on the back of my head sort of stand up a little bit, you know, depending on what we find. Like, there was a couple lolly columns, it was very obvious in this, that had been taken out of the centerline beam and were just thrown in the corner. Like, they didn't even bring them take them out of the structure. This was a very obvious one, but saved somebody a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of headache, in which they really didn't have the time to take on something like this. The next one, you know, our lovely fights with the plumbers. So I know just about every home has something like this at some point in time, depending on the amount of renovations and additions that we've had. But if you ever see any cut floor joists, especially like the one that we see on the right, then we might want to consider bringing in somebody that's got some structural experience to prescribe a fix. More often than not, the fixes are relatively easy, painless, and cheap. They sometimes can only cost a few $100s to fix one of these floor joists, depending on the amount of, you know, ductwork and plumbing and other penetrations that we have going on, and, you know, accessibility. But this is, especially as you can see with the one on the right, over a big tub. When we fill those tubs up, we're going to put a lot of water weight, you know, localized in this area. So if we've got compromised floor joists, then it won't be immediate or catastrophic collapses or anything like that. But over time, if these things are left unattended and improperly supported, then we can absolutely see unexpected deflections in the floor. We can see cracking in finishes. We can see plumbing leaks starting to occur, depending on the type of plumbing piping that we have, whether it be in brittle or flexible piping. So just another situation in which, you know, if you see these things during a walkthrough, give me a call. So going back to the previous foundation or structural repairs made, there's a lot of photos here. So added framing in an old farmhouse, like in the top left, with added framing for a hip roof, added lolly columns in the corner in picture 2. You can also see in picture 2, the center top left, that there have been helical tiebacks placed through the foundation wall. So once again, verifying previous structural repairs. Improper structural repairs, like we see in the center bottom picture, that is a old car jack from the early 1900s that's then used to brace a centerline beam around a stone chimney. So very, at the end of the day, it worked right here. But this is definitely something during a real estate transaction that, hey, we can get this repaired and done in a manner that will take any question of its serviceability and its lifespan out of the equation. And then a very common one in some of the older homes that see renovations is if you have a basement or a crawl space that has then been dug out after the home has been built, like in the bottom left picture, sometimes it's not done correctly. So what can happen, the rule of thumb when it comes to excavating soils is where the edge of your pier or your column is, you want to draw a 45-degree line. And if we have excavated that soil at a 45-degree line going down and away from the corner of that post, then we have technically undermined that column, because we now do not have soil stability to keep this column in the same position, given this soil were to become saturated or moist due to water or humidity, which happens, in crawl spaces and basements. So this is a good area showing where, hey, we had some previous excavation that I was able to confirm through other things that happened during this inspection, and then was able to get this remediated because this entire center line of this house had sank about 6 inches. This was a very distressed property, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. At the end of the day, the number one force against a home is water. It will always be water. And the more that we can do to keep water away from a home, the better it's going to stay in its current condition, and the longer the materials used in that home are going to last. The house that I'm showing here, this is all from the same house. This was a house up in Lake of the Woods, so up in Locust Grove, a little north of us. But the community did a renovation of the golf course at some point. And when they did a renovation of the golf course, this existing home had a lot more surface water shedded off of the golf course and onto its property. And what happened when they did the renovation of the golf course is they worked with the homeowner to install 6-foot French drains. I forget the spacing, it was like every 15 foot, 20 foot throughout the yard. But what happened is over 30 years, these rock and earthen French drains clogged up, and the homeowners themselves did very little maintenance on this house over the past 30 years. Ivy growth was rampant throughout. It was inside the house as well. They were very natural people, as we want to say. So they didn't want to take the ivy off. They didn't want to mess with anything, but was able to come in and consult, and have actually been working with these people for a little over a year now in getting all of this water remediated. We had to tear off the entire back porch and deck and screened in area. It was all completely rotted. We had water that had come in all the way into the center of the house due to just bad drainage. The gutters were completely clogged. So when it comes to hiring a structural engineer, it's not always a structural repair that needs to be made. It's understanding everything that goes into the makeup of a home and how every component needs to work together to keep the structure in good standing. So with this house, it's been a lot of grading, a lot of ripping up of concrete. You can see in the bottom center photo, this is the front walkway. The front walkway had settled, I want to say it was like 6%, 7% towards the house. So everything was just being shedded right through the cinder block foundation. So keeping water away, that's always the first thing that I'm looking at when I come out on site. Because if we can do anything to mitigate doing structural repairs, we should always do that first before making structural repairs, especially since we're coming into the majority of times, we're coming into these homes with very little knowledge of the life of the home. So before we go and make structural repairs, we need to take some time to view the home and see how the home acts. So distressed properties, moving on to distressed properties. So here's our, I knew he'd come and say hello at some point. Distressed properties. This was a home over in Waynesboro. It had been in the same family for 100 years, but it had sat empty since I think the 80s. And I was brought in to do not only a home inspection of it, but an overall structural assessment to see, hey, what is it really going to take for this home to be essentially gutted, renovated, and brought up and back to life. So I was able to come up with, real life numbers, working not only through the home inspection, but contacting contractors, getting contractors lined up to come out and give quotes and get reasonable expectations from a dollar amount of what it will take, depending on if you want to go, to the nth degree in finishes, to just the bare minimum of getting everything back in good condition with, very typical, I would want to say, rental finishes. So also very important, this house had 4 different types of foundations. So it had a wooden foundation that was at grade and was sitting on top of just bricks randomly placed around. It had poured concrete, it had masonry, and then it had a brick foundation as well. So that tells you how many additions this place had, how old the structure, the original structure itself was. So a lot was going on here, and I was very happy to be able to come out and help these clients out. Historic properties. So this is Central Virginia. I mean, we've been building here for a few hundred years. The oldest structure that I have yet to inspect was a 1631 farmhouse on the James River down in Buckingham County. Gorgeous property, but it was completely made of slate. It was half a mile from a large slate quarry. And so the buyers were very concerned. Hey, we've got this, what looks to be a very nice place, but it's built on top of slate and we're right next to the river. So what do we need to do? So it was brought in to consult from the home inspection side and the engineering side. And there were some repairs that needed to be made. Homes like the one shown here, the one on the left, we've had a lot of foundation issues. I'll get into this one a little bit more, but just gorgeous. The entire house, all 3 stories, is original banisters, original floors, original plaster from the 1840s. So very, very cool property. This this cabin in Free Union, original chestnut floors from the 1880s. Very fun project, but from the exterior, overall, everything was in good shape. We come into the crawl space and I found where a natural spring was actually allowed to flow under the house through the crawl space for almost 100 years. So I had to work with a contractor who I do a ton of work with to move the spring, put in new retaining walls, redo grading, and then we came in and essentially put in an entire new foundation on this cabin to ensure that these folks that just bought it are going to be able to use this cabin for another 100 years, them and their family. Let's see. And then, some of the more unfortunate things, the natural disasters. So this client was reached out to their realtor, after a tree fell on it last year during some very high winds, they reached out to me. I was then hired through their insurance company to then come out and do a structural assessment of the home, deem what was structurally deficient, and then prescribe fixes to then get the house back into its original condition. So very, unfortunate work, but this is something that you can, let your clients know that, hey, if bad things were to happen due to Mother Nature, we've got your back. We've got people that we know that can be out there immediately to come and help you move forward after a disaster like this. Failing retaining walls. So retaining walls and how they are built and allowed to be built has changed drastically over the past, I would say 25, 30 years, from what was just typically normally allowed, a contractor was allowed to do, versus what a contractor is allowed to do now, versus having to get an engineered stamp on top of installing the actual retaining wall. The home that we're looking at here, extremely nice house in the Earlysville area. The top left photo is taken from the back deck. So we're looking almost straight down, and you can see how high above just the fencing we are. And then we've got a 2 terraced level of retaining walls. Well, this retaining wall was put in around, I want to say it was like 1995, 1996. So right about the same time that all these code changes were happening with masonry retaining walls specifically. And to no fault of the homeowner, their drainage, their typical maintenance of the home was all in very good shape. They have done a very, very good job over the years of keeping up with this home. But just due to the construction type of the masonry retaining walls, the walls had started to bow in and to fail. And it was just simply because of outdated construction methods and what we needed to do to ensure that this extremely nice pool area is kept in the same condition for another 25, even longer, 50 years. So I was able to help the contractor the homeowner find the right contractor that was qualified and referred, by word of mouth. I work with people that I've worked with personally on my own homes, on my own engineering projects. And so these are the folks that I always try and pair up with your buyers or sellers at first. And then, manufactured homes. So this is something that some folks don't have a lot of experience with, and it can be difficult to find structural engineers willing to come out, inspect, and certify manufactured homes, especially to the HUD manufactured permanent foundation guides, dealing with, like, if you have a client that is buying a home with a USDA, FHA, VA loan, more often than not, these types of inspections are required from the lender and whatnot to get the home sold. So this is, while it might not pop up all the time, just know that Virginia's Choice Home Inspections can do these types of inspections. And if everything is in good shape, the turnaround time for the report is usually the same day. If there are repairs that need to be made, then we just go back and forth with the contractor, get those repairs made, re-inspect, and then once everything's in good shape, issue your certifying letter, and you move on to closing. And then some of the more, the ones that probably stick out the most in everybody's mind is bowing foundation walls. There's a lot of homes around here that have masonry or concrete masonry units, CMU foundation walls. I like the one shown here. The one shown here is a very extreme case. I could almost fit my hand through the interior face of the block and touch the exterior face of the block. This wall was bowed significantly, and I actually told the homeowner that, hey, you've got somebody renting in here. This needs to be addressed immediately. Like the floor system the roof system, everything with this house is with what was going on and the amount of water intrusion that was being allowed in. This was one of the most extreme cases that I've found with needing an immediate repair. Was able to get it done, got everything done in the next 3 months, and everything's back to just as this house was, like it was built in the 60s. When I talk about elevated hydrostatic pressure up on the top right corner, what that means is what's the amount of water pressing against the wall from the ground. So these older homes that have ungrouted hollow block masonry walls are only designed to take a specific amount of lateral pressure. Well, if we exceed that due to bad drainage, improper grading, gutters that don't work, deferred maintenance, any number of things that can push water towards a foundation, it's very easy to see cracking like this. And in different situations, we can prescribe different fixes. And then at the end of the day, I would always heed, there are companies out there that will come out and provide a free quote. These companies are also trying to sell a certain product that their company sells. I always heed realtors, lenders, anybody that is involved with the transaction process of a home or commercial space to maybe not try and go with that free quote right up front, because it is free and they can get out there in a couple days and likely will prescribe something that is might not be the correct fix for the job. I always stress, call a structural engineer. We are not there, any structural engineer, if they are doing their job, doing it correctly, with the right code of ethics and morals, we are not there to sell you on anything. I'm there to educate you on what is the right fix for the situation at hand. I am a person that is very much, let's think about this logically. Let's think about this in very simple ways to get to the end goal that keeps everybody's well-being, safety, and their wallets in mind. Because there's a lot of these foundation contractors that we might need, you know, a very simple $5,000 fix, but a lot will come out and say, hey, we've got this massive issue. Your house is out of plumb by, you know, 1.5 inches, which every house is out of plumb. This just happens as, you know, we load soil. Things are going to move differently depending on what we have. And being in the mountain areas, we're usually not building on very flat lots. So a little bit of movement is expected. It's expected from the design standpoint, all the way through from the first drawing, all the way through the end of construction. A little bit of movement is expected of homes. So I always stress, bring an engineer out. It will cost a little bit up front for their time and their expertise. But at the end of the day, though, that few $100s could save you thousands of thousands of not having to put in a system that really is not apt for your home. There's carbon fiber strapping, which is the most common, in my opinion, and should be the most used, because unless we're like that picture I showed previously with that 2-inch gap in the block, unless we're getting to something around that types of deflections, then installing steel beams, vertical beams or columns at the foundation wall, and installing helical tiebacks, things like this. I mean, we're talking massive amounts of load that a home will never see, and is extremely over designed, in my opinion. So it takes a little bit of understanding the materials used and the situation and the types of loading that we can see to prescribe the right fix. And so there's been a number of occasions where I go into homes and a $25,000 repair using, wide flange beams and tiebacks are being proposed, and we've been able to repair it for $5,000, $7,000, with a much more manageable system that does the exact same thing. So it's just about understanding all of your options, and sometimes bringing in an engineer can help explain all of those options, inform you as best as we can, and arm you with as much information to then maybe go back to that foundation contractor and say, hey, well, we brought our own independent engineer in. They're saying this will do the trick. What is your take? What's your pricing? And then obviously with folks that I work with, we can always provide second opinions as well. So lots thrown at you right there. Little bit of, just common things that we see in residential structures in Central Virginia that I want to try and make you aware of. So why choose Virginia's Choice Home Inspections? I mean, I think I've sort of beat the dead horse here a little bit, but the added value of having a professional engineer here, a way deeper understanding of building science, which is different than just the materials, which is different than construction type. It's understanding how the entire building envelope, inside the envelope and outside the envelope, work together to keep you comfortable and safe in a home. And then an extreme added value is, say we come into a home inspection with no known structural deficiencies or anything that we've seen previous. And then we find something. Hey, I'm already on site, or my other inspector's already on site. So you don't have to then hurry or potentially, compromise a deal with trying to find somebody to get out there in a short amount of time, because, hey, we're already there. So if we do find something, I typically like to run through the entire home inspection, bring this to your attention and the buyer or seller's attention at that time. Then they can elect to hire me as the engineer at the end of the home inspection to then come back through the entire structure right there to provide a structural assessment. So you've already knocked out two birds with one stone. You're getting the home inspection report that's going to note some of these structural deficiencies, but I'm already there, right there, writing up the structural report to follow right behind that home inspection, so you can get to your negotiations faster. So we don't have a lot of time in between for that stress and uncomfortability to build for both sides, the seller and the buyer side. So if we can condense this time down as much as possible and keep things moving, I feel like that's a great way to go about things. And then just trusting the experts, right? I've performed over 1,300 inspections in the past 3.5 years. It's been a busy time. In that time, collected over 100 5-star Google reviews. So if you don't believe me and what I'm preaching here, go look at Google, read my reviews, go to my website, call some of the other realtors in your office that have worked with me, put me to the test. I'm more than happy to run through the ringer and the gauntlet with you. So then where do we work? Lastly, short answer, and I feel like that's all of us here. This is Central Virginia. We're pretty much 45 minutes to everywhere. So we go Waynesboro, Crozet, Scottsville, Buckingham, Bumpus, Locust Grove, Culpeper, anywhere and everywhere. I like to try and say, and if it's outside the normal range of basically the James River to Highway 3, Interstate 81 to Interstate 95, if we're anywhere outside that range, give me a call. If scheduling and timing allows for it, we will travel for you. We will try and make everything as easy and as comfortable as possible and familiar. So if you are reaching to some of these outside of your normal network areas, you're still working with the same people. So that's really all that I've got right now. So I'd love to open it up for some questions. Does anybody have anything for me?
Hey, Alex, it's Aaron Garcia. Hey, I'm trying to get myself together. I don't know if this is a you question. Thank you, first of all, as always. And we've definitely worked together. And I know even just for a general home inspection, having you there to be like, yeah, you're good with that, whatever, or we need to do a deeper dive has been helpful. One of the things that I was, and again, this might be more of an agent discussion than a you question, but I completely agree with this, you coming in as a non-biased party for these free quote guides. I've worked specifically with a very big, all these people are going to be unnamed, but a very big company that comes in and does the free thing and, $45,000 later. And it's a hard push. People don't have any money and then no worries, you pay at closing. And then a few smaller companies. But one of the things that I have found is tricky is we have done this before where I had somebody like yourself come in to say, this is what we need to do. And they say, we don't care. Like this, if we're going to warranty this, this is what we're going to have to do. It just feels like a really interesting push and pull because ethically, I believe exactly what you're saying, that we need to have a non-biased party who's saying, now we need to go and do this. And these companies have got us in a really interesting a difficult place in that way. So I didn't know if anybody else on this chat has experienced that, but just wanted to mention that it feels like us as the facilitator of this, with knowing that what you're recommending is for sure where we should go, but then having these companies say, we're not going to do what your engineer says, we're going to do what our engineers, and I'm not even certain they're engineers that are drawing these plans up.
Correct.
So,
yeah.
So anyways, just a part of the discussion. It's not necessarily a question, but just some of my experiences.
No, that's great to know. I personally have not had that happen. Some of these larger companies that we're talking about have, when I've come behind them or third party, they've always deferred to me. They said, okay, if you're willing to put your stamp on it and say that this is your design, we can move forward. Some of those companies, yes,
Yeah.
say no, we're using our proprietary design, or we're not doing it. And typically that's when folks will go a different route. But yeah, that's interesting. I've not.
I would imagine you've had way more experiences of doing this. I mean, mine has been a handful, and it could be just a salesperson that I'm working with truly. So that makes me feel encouraged that there actually are people who are taking your designs and willing to at least work with them. I understand if they're going to warranty something for a lifetime or for 50 years or whatever, that they might want to take your design and beef it up more because they don't want to come back to that house. But that's just, that's good feedback. So, okay, cool.
Yeah. And if that ever pops up, give me a shout. Yeah. Happy to talk through it.
Hey, Alex, it's Kelly Lindauer.
Hey, Kelly.
I haven't worked with you yet, but you've come highly recommended. But one of the questions I had about was your procedure. So you come out as the home inspector, and then if we find something significant, then do we have to recommit to you to come out as an engineer, or are you able to do that if you have the time in the same visit?
Yeah, so yes, they were just going through a normal home inspection period. You haven't found, there's not been anything disclosed, nothing like that. And then, I come into the attic and I find two trusses that are broken. I'm going to alert y'all to that right at the end of the home inspection when I'm running through every single photo, going through every single deficiency, major and minor, out of the home inspection, and then alert y'all to that and say, hey, look, this is something that will be in your home inspection report because you've hired me with that hat and that license on. As a home inspector, I'm not going to put structural verbiage in a home inspection because I'm not hired as the structural engineer. If you elect to hire me on site right then, I will then take the home inspector hat off, put the engineer hat on, run back through the structure all the way to make sure that I understand the full structural makeup, because when I'm in a home inspection, I'm there looking at everything. So not just structural. So now that I've got my structural, binoculars on, I'm focusing specifically on those things. So run back through that and then do a debrief at the end, again, saying, hey, this is what I found. This is what I think you should do. no, you don't need a written report from me, or yes, you do need a written report from me. Here's what's wrong. Here's how we can fix it. So by the time we've left that home inspection, you know exactly what's in the home inspection, and you know any structural repairs that need to be made or that need to be looked into further before we even leave site. So it's just sort of all handled right there together. And then, you know, you and your client can always say, no, we're not worried about it, or we're going to bring in somebody else. I give everybody the chance at the end of the home inspection, because I don't like stopping the home inspection and then focusing on something specific. I need to get through the home inspection first, get that completely done, and then we can go back through right at the same time and focus solely on the structure.
That makes a ton of sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, or anybody want to jump into the chat box or whatever you want to do on that?
And if anybody comes up with questions later, like on the screen right now is my email address, my telephone number, and my website. So please, you know, give me a phone call, shoot me an email, whatever's easiest. If you've got, you know, while this might be fresh in your mind over the next few days, if you're running through homes and you see something, take a picture, shoot it to me, call me. Let's talk it out. And if it's the first time we've worked together, then we'll make a good introduction and find some time to have some coffee or some lunch as well.
Okay, awesome. Anything else? Okay. Well, Alex, we appreciate you sharing your expertise. And Lauren, are you going to give us some upcoming car classes and events to look out for? I think we may have lost.
I was indeed muted.
There you are. That's okay.
Alex, are you able to stop sharing your screen?
Let's see. And there we go.
Oh, here's a question from Janice O'Hara. Did you see that?
Oh, Janice, I'm sorry. Let me pop this back open.
Yeah.
Let's see.
She has a client buying land to build a church. Can you do a preliminary site check?
So if it's raw land, I mean, yeah, it can certainly come out depending on where we're at in either the design process or preliminary looking at the land. Yeah, we can talk more about that, because depending on where we are in that build sequence, there's definitely things that I can consult on to make sure everything is being handled properly. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So now, Lauren, you can give us what's coming up here. Car classes and events to look out for.
Yes, so the Charlottesville Young Professional Network has our 9th Salvation Army Angel Tree. I actually got the email this morning that the tags are finally ready to be picked up, which is really exciting. So those of you who registered for tags yesterday at the November GMM, you'll be getting an email, hopefully either by the end of the day or by the end of Monday, on what angels you have picked, and the rest of CAR is going to be able to come to the CAR office and pick out their angels, which is very exciting. We then have our last GRI of 2023, which is real estate law with Reggie the bow tie guy. He's coming all the way from my hometown in Northern Virginia, which is really exciting. It's on Monday, November 6th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Registration fee is $115, and the sponsor is Fulton Mortgage Company. We then have a DEI class. It is an online self-guided course called Vestibule. It is disability inclusion. It is a really fun class. You register using the CAR and Education's calendar, and you get 1 hour of real estate related CE credit. We then have some CAR technology coming up. If you didn't know, Catalyst platform, which is our commercial real estate platform, has been bought by Moody's and is being, whoopsies, upgraded. So we have some upgrade training. We also have Paragon and CRS coming up, 2 more Paragon classes for 2023. So make sure you take them while you can. We have another DEI class coming up on Thursday, November 9th. It is with Jason Elliott. He will be discussing LGBTQI+ training. It is a fantastic course. It is sponsored by our DEI committee in Virginia Housing with Frank Webster. So I definitely recommend you come out for that. We have our last general membership meeting of 2023 as well in December. It is December 7th from 9 to 10:30 a.m. It is when our 2024 officers and President-elect Ann Burroughs are going to be installated. So you should definitely come out and see that. We're very excited about it. We then have Pancakes in Politics, which is hosted by Neil Williamson. It is going to be giving you valuable government updates like the zoning ordinance. If you came to the luncheon that happened, I believe in September. You can register for free on the current education and events calendar. You'll be getting breakfast, which is super exciting. This is going to be our last class event of 2023. It is hosted by DEI and Virginia Housing again. It is our Credit and Equity and Housing Access by Housing Opportunities Made Equal of Virginia. You can register for free using the CAR Education and Events calendar. And we're super excited. These are our 2024 Latte and Learns. We have a lot of very important discussions coming up. We have pricing strategies, how to navigate bidding wars, which is hosted by YPN with Sasha Tripp, due diligence and land surveys in June with Carrie Greggs, cash contracts in September with Anthony McGee, working with historical properties with Shannon Harrington in October, and then Appy Hour. So we're super excited about all our Latte and Learns that are coming in 2024. We also have our 2024 GRI schedule that's out. We have all 10 GRIs. In Virginia, you do need to complete GRI 507 through 510 in order to receive the GRI designation. And so CAR hosts all of them and they are hybrid. Pat Jensen Leadership Academy is coming back in 2024. The online application opens March 1st and the Pat Jensen Leadership Academy begins September 26th. Scan this QR code for more information. And of course, we have our DEI library that is out in the CAR Realtor store. You are able to check out a book for 3 weeks. I just finished one of the books on there. It was great. I've read Black Fatigue. I definitely recommend it. So make sure that you visit the DEI library in the CAR office so you don't want to miss out. And this is our first Latte and Learn of 2024. It is pricing strategies, explore essential pricing methods, gain insights into market trends, and discover strategies to help your clients achieve their real estate goals. It is February 9th, same time via Zoom. So make sure you get your coffee out for it. Thank you all again for coming to the last Latte and Learn of 2023. We're so happy that you are all able to make it. And don't forget to register for more classes and events using the CAR Education and Events calendar.
And the last thing that I would like to say is that all of our classes are online. They're there for you to register now. They're open. So if you want to get a head start on things for next year, doing your business planning now, we're also having the business planning class in January through the GRI. So I suggest that you would take that. And hopefully we'll see you at some of the new things that's coming up in 2024. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, once
Hi, everybody.
again,
Have a good weekend.
yeah, Alex, thank you so much again for your expertise, and thanks everybody for joining, and have a wonderful Friday and weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks,
y'all.
Alex.
Okay, bye.
Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.